like, so it starts happening to us also, right? When we see our children being very friendly with dogs, we try to be very protective about them. And, so somehow we are not able to understand what basically how our child is sort of reacting with another sort of animal or a person where we were so much scared of. And this essentially also stops this sort of likes and dislikes sort of blocks our proper functioning of our emotions. So similarly, as we go along, right, we also start developing relationships with people with around. We have some good relationships and not so good ones, in which we sort of either we reject people or we get too much attached to people. So even this excessive attachment also sometimes is quite hindrance to our being. And he sort of depicts this to an elephant tied to a sort of a pole when at a very young age, where it thinks that it cannot sort of move forward. So this is the sort of how the likes and dislikes sort of grow and build within us. We sort of which will sort of hinder us from being our true self. So this is how Daji sort of looks at things as to how the formation of blocks happen in us. Going in further, what happens to these blocks also is, I'll continue with this paragraph. When something triggers your likes, it prevents you from taking in, processing, and moving on. You get stuck in that moment. You resist the experience you don't like, and you become attached to the experience you do like, whether it's attachment or resistance, like or dislike. The flow of consciousness is blocked. Subsequent experiences have to overcome these blocks to capture our attention. So essentially what I think what Daji is essentially saying here is that these sort of likes and dislikes sort of get programmed in us, and we are sort of automatically sort of react to these sort of situations rather than respond to situations. And so it makes us very reactive in nature rather than respond in a way that is beneficial to us and all around. So this is how the likes and dislikes sort of hamper our consciousness and also in our way of responding to things around us. So moving further, unresolved emotional blocks create deep impressions with exceptionally vivid detail and long-lasting memory of the emotional turbulence. The yogis call these impressions samskaras. I think we also sort of see this in many of our dreams. Some of the nightmares that we give regarding exams, right? Even even at a very advanced age, we have dreams where we sort of we see that we are not prepared well for the exam and we are supposed to write an examination. Most of us get these sort of dreams, right? And others would also get something similar dreams also, which they think they have got over it, but somehow those impressions have been sort of deeply sort of embedded in us. Okay, so here how Daji goes on explaining what samskaras are. Samskaras, the blocks in our consciousness. When water flows over the same ground, it carves out a channel for itself. Over time, this channel widens and makes way for a gushing river. Now, when it rains, this is the only path the water takes. The samskaras also carve a pattern of behavior in you. How to think, how to react, and what you like or dislike are the results of samskaras. The life you are leading is your samskaras unfolding in front of you. I think this is something which Patanjali also talks about, right? He says vritti sarupyata itara. He says in this, I think it's the fourth sort of stanza where he talks about similar thing where your samskaras or your vrittis start ruling you, then what you really have to sort of conduct yourself in a particular situation. Okay, this basically, I think I put a chart where it says, how samskaras clog the field around the chakra, suffocating it. This results in blockage in consciousness. It's important to remember that attachment and resistance both creation pressure. That's the samskaras, basically. So going further, samskaras forming habits. Because this is the next level as to what happens to us, like in the formation of habits and the role of samskaras in it. The unresolved emotional blocks inside us create samskaras that instigate behavioral patterns. Each time a situation arises, the same behavioral pattern is enforced. As a result, we form emotional habits. And what's so special about a habit? Once a habit is formed, it occurs automatically without much thought or effort. All it needs is a cue, some bigger type of some type of a trigger, and the programmed behavior follows. And in the subsequent paragraph it says, our minds like to form habits. Habits relieve the mind from the pressure to be actively present all the time. Otherwise, imagine it if every day we had to learn how to cook, how to drive, and so on. Habits allow life to happen in cruise control. Our minds have a vast storehouse of memories allocated for habits, making our lives easier. Yeah, as you would probably see in these two paragraphs, we have Daji telling that, habits are useful to us. So not all habits are bad, but I think habits are useful to us because we can multitask, basically. We can do a lot more things when we are doing things. But, picking up bad habits also is another dangerous part of it, because it also takes you through, as he said in the previous, which would be detrimental to us. So this is how blocks starts happening in each of our chakras, which we have to sort of get rid of or unshackle them. So we'll move on to the now, having we had briefly talked about different chakras. Now we'll start going through the heart region. And as you know, our spiritual anatomy, we have, Daji and, Babuji has sort of characterized this whole spiritual anatomy of a human being in three major regions: the heart region, the mind region, and the central region. So we'll talk briefly about the heart region, and then after this we start going through each point in the heart regions. The specialty of the heart that it is connected to all the 16 chakras. So that is one of the reasons why we sort of meditate on the heart. Just as watering the roots of a plant nourishes even its farthest branches, meditating on the heart chakra ensures work is done on all the chakras. We'll talk about that as we start discussing the details in each chakra. There are 5 chakras in the heart region. I think as depicted in the picture on the top right. Together, they are like a constellation and form a region of consciousness called the heart region. The heart region is the collective consciousness of the human condition. It represents the everyday you, me, and everyone who grapples with life daily struggles. As you see in this picture here, the human being is essentially a social animal. And he has to sort of interact with people at different levels. Family at a particular level, friends at another level, then at office and at office and work at another level. So there is always, and our consciousness and our interactions are always there. Some good, some not so good. So, and we have to keep handling them. So they also keep shaping us in particular ways, and we try to sort of keep adjusting in a way so that it's just sort of beneficial to us. And sometimes we succeed and sometimes we don't. But that's the part of learning in life. And that's what we experience majorly in the heart region. Our desires, insecurities, fears, worries, joys, pleasures, feelings, emotions, indifferences, strengths, weaknesses, and prejudices all come together in the human condition's melting pot. So I think society is the melting pot here, and where we sort of go through all these sort of spectra of feelings, that we sort of undergo through. So what happens when you master this? The next following paragraphs will talk about that. The mastery of the heart region symbolizes mastery over the human condition. In our transformation, going from mass to energy to the absolute, crossing the heart region means expanding our awareness beyond materiality to a subtler level. When you cross the heart region, you outgrow the instinctive nature and become a generous and benevolent human being, liberated into a level of consciousness that we call freedom. And lastly, he says that when you cross the heart region, you arrive at a real freedom. Free from all conditionality, you are free because it is your nature. The yogis have a name for real freedom. It is called liberation, kaivalya, nirvana, mukti, and so on. Liberation is freedom from the bondage of opposites. Such a state creates immense poise in one's being. So this is the condition, I think, what Daji is talking about in the entire heart region as we sort of traverse through the 5 major points. Okay. So next is basically the heart region is also how Babuji describes this as the region of the opportunity to overcome the opposites. Let's see what it means. Opposites characterize our world, night and day, positive and negative, hot and cold, joy and sorrow, life and death, and so on. The opposites are a part of world's design, and the 5 chakras in the heart region embody this. 5 points in the region basically embody. Let's see what they really mean in the next paragraphs. At each chakra, samskaras opposing emotions are collected. For example, samskaras related to contentment and discontentment are collected in the first chakra. Similarly, samskaras related to calmness and disturbance are collected in the second chakra. The image below shows the types of samskaras that get collected in the 5 chakras. An easy way to remember the opposites is to think of them as 5 C's and 5 D's of the heart region. As you see probably in the bottom right of the slide, you would see the 5 C's and the 5 D's in the different chakras, where in the first chakra you basically sort of try to manage contentment and discontentment. The second chakra, it is balancing of calmness and disturbance, compassion and displeasure in the third, courage and discouragement in the fourth, and clarity and delusion in the fifth. So these are the opposites that that our mind goes through, which we sort of learn to manage, and after we manage, we sort of move on from that to the more subtler region of the mind region. So this paragraph talks about how this dynamics happen in these five chakras. How we feel at any time depends on the swings of the 5 C's and D's. We may feel content at one level and disturbed at another level. We may feel outwardly calm, but also feel displeasure within us. Thus, our emotional state is a flux, causing instability. The main culprit of instability is the samskaras. For instance, if a samskar wishes to be fulfilled, the field of the first chakra vibrates with contentment. But if that wish remains unfulfilled, the same chakra will vibrate with discontentment, because now those samskaras are active. Any chakra can tolerate disturbance in the energy field to a certain extent. But if the emotion is intense, the excess emotional energy ripples out to the other chakras. It is like the water basins that collect storm water at different locations to mitigate the intensity of flood. So here in this particular paragraph, I think, which we also sort of experience in our daily lives, right? Especially when, so here we say one line that sort of caught my eyes. We may feel outwardly calm, but also feel displeasure within us. These sort of things sometimes does happen in our professional life, right? That when that we have to sort of, we have to put up a personality saying that we are very calm, but sometimes inwardly there's a lot of things happening within us. So these sort of things we do sort of see these opposites sort of happening within us also. So which is very, very common. Okay. So that's basically the thing of composites. Yeah. So now let's look at the five elements of the five elements and the heart in the heart region. So we had talked about elements in the earlier sessions, but let's see how it looks like in particular in the heart region. Okay. As we master the chakra, we distill the elements, the essence of each element into the corresponding quality which expresses itself in our consciousness. So here in this book, Daji gives a very beautiful example of how Picasso sort of sketched a bull, which is here, into its sort of very simple, it's more of a sketch over here, into a sort of essence over here, to basically depict what a bull looks like. Very interesting comparison, for us to sort of observe. So Earth, moving on, it says Earth represents acceptance. That is why this is why Earth we refer. This is also why we refer to Earth as Mother. She accepts all. Right? I think in our scriptures also, like Sita is considered to be the daughter of the Earth, and sort of willing to sort of endure all difficulties in life, accept everybody, and move on. So the next element is fire. The next element is space. The next element is space. Space represents the eternal nature of the soul. Space was always there, and its essence is peace. Space is peace. Yeah, space. I think we also observe these sort of things, right? In our homes as well as in our place of work, where our team members ask, or our employees ask us that my manager doesn't give me enough space for me to work with, which generally means that his talent is not being fully sort of used, which sort of makes the individual sort of very suffocated in the company. So it also happens sometimes in families too, where the parents sort of force their children to do what the parents are interested in rather than what the child wants to do. So that again, that's where you see the space component sort of lacking that is there, and also space is also sometimes connected to the mind in a way where we call about where we look at broad-mindedness in people. So that is also some part of a space sort of an element. So the next is water. Fire. Fire represents love, and the spirit is transformation, and as you probably know, in fire, right, where you basically take a lump of earth and sort of convert it into maybe an iron or steel or maybe even gold, right? So, but that has to go through a lot of heat, which is sort of provided by the for the transformation to take place, so that the rest of the earth is taken off and only gold is sort of taken from it. So that for any transformation, I think love is necessary. Probably in mundane world, we could also at the bare minimum we could call it as interest, and also willingness. That's one thing that we also look for in the like any abhyasi wants to start. the heartfulness practice is like willingness, and that is the sort of a starting point. And and that's where the element of fire sort of basically comes in. And then we have water. Water basically represents courage and flexibility. So water has has a sort of a very major play in our old Sanatan Dharma, as they say, where we use water. I think not only Sanatan Dharma, but also in other religions also water is used, as a sort of an item for any baptism or anything like that in the Christian tradition. So I think water represents flexibility. So flexibility is again very crucial here, because as we sort of encounter situations, well, things could be going on at a particular direction. But if there is a change in direction needed, so there needs to be flexibility, within us, be it in our official work, or even in spirituality. For that needs a lot of courage, because inertia does play a very big role, which will sort of hinder our progress or make us go in the wrong direction. So water is that element when we find will give us that flexibility, which will sort of take us through. And finally, we have air. Air is another element which basically, which they say enables visibility, and it represents clarity. So, okay. So this is a picture that I have put. What air does, what happens when a light is passed in a dark area. As you see, air basically has this unique sort of of a characteristic which helps to provide us better clarity, whenever whenever a light is sort of put. I think if people with physics would probably understand this is possible because of the phenomena of scattering of light and refraction. This sort of enables the light to see things in a better manner. So that's how air also has a very sort of a thing where clarity is sort of being used as a symbol for when air is used as a symbol of clarity. So I'll stop here. If there are any questions, we'll probably take and we can go on.
Brother?
Yeah, very good.
How the 5 elements in our chakras affect the Abhyasi?
Well, I think we'll.
Practice.
Hello? Yeah.
Brother?
Yeah, go ahead.
How
Pankaj.
the 5 elements in our chakras, 5 chakras, affects on the Abhyas of the Abhyasi?
So as we sort of let me give it a try. See, as you know, each chakra has those 5 elements, and each element basically has its characteristic, and each element and each chakra has, since they have all those, is basically a conglomerate of all these 5 elements. Though in each chakra there could be a predominant element. Like in the first chakra, as you would probably see, is a chakra is the earth chakra, which has the element, which has earth as its prominent element. Now this basically, as you see, that's basically the point of contentment, as you would probably see. And once these sort of elements are acted upon, so this would help in essentially sort of unfolding that particular knot and sort of helping the Abhyasi in that particular fashion. Not sure if I was able to answer you well, but this is what came to my mind. Anybody would like to sort of clarify or?
Okay, brother. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Brother Bhaskar,
Let's move on then.
1 minute, brother. Brother Bhaskar,
Now,
I simply want to kind of clarify the question further a bit more, because the question that you asked was a very, very broad based question. So you
Yes,
might want
brother.
to kind of clarify that question further a bit, what exactly you have in mind.
oh,
The role of the elements, brother,
See, the role of
on
the elements,
the
1 minute, the role of the
base.
elements is very, very clear. In the context of this particular slide that brother is presenting, each element has a particular character.
Okay, brother.
Okay. For example, earth element represents acceptance, space element represents the eternal nature, fire elements the transformation, water element the flexibility, and the air element is the visibility. Now, whatever changes we perceive in any particular chakra based on these elements will be related to one of these characters of the FI elements. I think if you just keep that in mind, wherever you read about any particular element, it's about transformation. For example, the third point is fire element. Now, if you just look at when does a person's spiritual journey really take off? When the fire of transformation is really burning in their heart, then the mind decisively moves in the direction of spirituality versus the direction of materiality. So that's why if you even in spiritual anatomy, Daji says it was the third element that he actually took a long time to actually journey from, move from to the next point, the third point to the fourth point, because that point of transformation is something very, very critical. So if you just keep this perspective of the characters of the element in mind, it will actually help you to work out what are all the possible conditions that might actually come about at a particular point. Okay, and also how strongly that journey will take place based on that particular element which is predominant in a particular point. Without that transformation at the third point in the decisive direction of spirituality, the courage or clarity and other things which you see does not come going forward. So third point in a way in the Pinda Pradesh is very, very critical. Okay, so just remember the characters of each of the elements. In that way, over a period of time, you will be able to work out how does each of these elements contribute to the changes that you are seeing in the conditions of the Abhyasi. Okay.
Thank you, brother. Okay,
Yes,
brother.
Sister Nirmala or Pankaj, whoever wants to.
Brother, this is a question I had asked earlier also about how come space is at point two. I mean, space is something that we are supposed to be achieving the eternal nature of soul. I thought we would achieve it much later, before, the rest of it. I don't know whether I'm making myself clear here. I mean, isn't space the ultimate thing that we are trying to achieve? How come it's coming at point two? I mean, if we have achieved it at point two, then haven't we achieved it all?
Yeah, as sister, I think if you look at if you have seen all the chakras, basically, space element goes right up to the 13th chakra. So these elements are there prevalent in all the chakras. And as we keep going through the chakra from first chakra to the 13th, these elements will keep getting refined as we go along. And that's what I would say. So it would be at the second chakra, it could essentially be sort of peace. I think as I think Daji in his book also keeps referring to, as an Abhyasi goes through different chakras, he would start off learning about peace, being peace at different levels. The same word, because of the language, right? I think there could be peace at different levels, love at different levels, right? So there could be, the definitions would keep getting refined as we go along because of want of words, right? We sort of we keep it at that level. But then, as you see, this element would keep getting refined right up to the 13th point.
Yeah, just to supplement, brother Venkatadri's explanation, it is the characteristic of space is of course peace. And the master says when we get into this chakra, we already start having an inkling of the liberation. It is not liberation as such, but we have a whiff. It is like going towards the ocean. So this dominant peace which we experience when we go through this chakra is also experienced in a more subtle manner when we go through fourth chakra and also at eighth chakra. The quality of peace is a bit more different. So that's what he is telling. What question which Dr. Nirmala expressed, that we are already, we are not really conquering this space as such when we go through the second chakra. Real mastery, of course, comes as he is telling, once we come to the later chakras. So it is peace at an initial stage, let us understand, and the refinement is an ongoing process.
Just one or two other points, sister. I think you are getting confused between the elements and the content of a particular chakra. Well, what I mean is the lowest level in which the soul manifests its characters is the second point. Okay, that's the lowest level where the soul manifests its character very distinctly, very clearly. Now, there are other points in the Pinda Pradesh where we actually move around. However, the soul does not manifest its character as clearly as in the second point. Now, two things come together in the second point. The soul itself is Akasha. If you remember, the identity is Akasha. You remember that absolute is Akasha, identity is Akasha. So, in a way, that identity is now Akasha, which is there in the second point, and the element is also space. So there are kind of two components of space coming together, the space element and the identity in the form of space. That is why you feel that space element very distinctly. Second thing to remember is, if you just look at the Upanishads, the way that the creation comes about in Upanishads, the way it is described, it is there in the 7 chakras of the normal yogic path also. First is the space. From there you get air. From there you get fire. From fire you get water. And from water you get earth. This is the sequence that is commonly described in yogic literature. So space to air, air to fire, fire to water, water to earth. Now many people would apply that logic of the elements in the 7 chakras to these spiritual points. Remember,
Yes.
these spiritual points are very distinct from the 7 chakra sequence that we are talking about. Now, if you read letter from Lalaji, he describes exactly the same thing. Mooladhara chakra is earth element that merges into the water element in the Swadhisthana. Then from the water element, it is withdrawn, merges into the fire element in the Manipura. The fire element is withdrawn and it merges into the air element in the throat chakra. Then the air element merges, air element in the heart chakra. Then the heart chakra's, the air element then merges into the space element in the Vishuddha chakra. This is the sequence that is given. This is exactly what is described in the Upanishads in the context of how creation came about. But don't confuse between that sequence where we are talking about in the 7 chakras versus this sequence where we are actually talking about the spiritual points. To just give you a simple example, the 5th point in our system, we say it is green color. The 5th point in the context of the 7 chakra system, the traditional yoga system, we call it as the blue color. So you can see that there is a bit of a divergence in between these two systems. Although we also talk about the 5th point, Vishuddha chakra, they also talk about it. And from the 6th point onwards, it seems to kind of go in tandem. So just remember some of these nuances and don't get confused between these.
Okay.
But the lowest point of this, the soul manifesting very distinctly, and that distinction also comes about because of the fact that the space element is predominant and the soul is also a space in a way. So both of these come together to give you a very vivid experience of the space, of the soul. That is why Daji writes
Okay.
that the second point is the seed of liberation. You don't get liberation, you get a seed there.
Right.
That will manifest in the sixth
Okay.
point when you actually attain the liberation.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Ashwini?
Brother, I'm not very sure if I'm further confused. Like, is it the space, is the ether element which we are talking? I remember you had mentioned something like that. Like, this is not that space which is, the first, I mean, after, Mahapralaya also, the space remains. This is not that space. This is the ether thing which we are
Right.
talking about, right?
Correct. So when there's
Okay.
another trouble with some of the spiritual literature. The many spiritual literature use space and ether as two separate things. There are a lot of literature in that way. So if you look at it from the context of elements, where they use the word space, what they mean is ether. And ether and space are not one and the same. This is also a distinction that you will probably catch as a nuance as you go further deeper into spiritual literature. But for the sake of, since we have not used the word ether in Babuji's literature or Daji's literature, as far as we are concerned, we can just take it as equivalent. But if you actually look at the yogic literature, they differentiate between space and ether, although because of the shortage of the words, in a way, the ether is a slightly grosser aspect of the space. That's how it is used. Both are space, but the ether is something like a grosser aspect where there is an element which is present, which is not there in the space. So in that context also, some of these nuances that we are talking about can be explained. Okay. So ether is an element, space is not an element.
Yeah.
More appropriate is that term Akasha, which you use.
Okay. Pankaj?
Yeah. Brother, the last sentence on the slide says by developing the quality of the chakra, we transcend its opposites. The quality of the chakra has the duality, right? For example, peace and disturbance and so forth. So like we need to develop one of them and what does it mean actually?
See, for example, acceptance. If you develop acceptance, you develop acceptance both for the good and the bad. It's not like you are going to accept only one aspect of it. If you develop transformation, you are going to accept whatever comes your way in the spirit of transformation. It could be something very pleasant, it could be something very unpleasant. So the moment we actually start getting mastery over the quality of that particular element in a particular chakra, it actually helps us to transcend the dualities which is present in that particular chakra. So for example, in the acceptance, there is the desire versus the contentment. No, it's not like you are going to shun all the desires and you are going to only accept the contentment only. Now you will become more pragmatic in the sense that at times you are also okay to accept the desires in the context of your evolution. At times you are okay to actually emphasize the contentment. In other words, how do we actually cross over the dualities by developing moderation? That was one of the things that was presented earlier on in the meeting, this meeting only. It is the moderation that actually, if you go back to the letter that brother mentioned from Lalaji, it emphasized the aspect of moderation. Until unless we develop moderation, moderation is the way to get over the dualities. It is not shunning of both those things that actually develops, what do you say, our ability to transcend the dualities. It is developing moderation that actually helps us to transcend the dualities at each of these elements. And the character of each of these elements actually gives us an opportunity to work with, develop that character so that we can overcome the dualities. There we are overcome the dualities by developing moderation. How are we developing moderation? By developing the character of that particular element in a particular chakra. That's the sequence.
Yes, brother. Understood. Brother, one more question related to 5 elements. Today it's mentioned earth quality, the essence of that element is acceptance. But in previous session, we also heard about solidity. Earth represents solidity. So how do we understand this aspect of solidity in the context of chakra, first chakra?
Solidity and acceptance. When we talk about solidity, there are quite a few degrees of solidity, no? The solidity can be hard solid, rock solid, firm. So there are quite a few degrees. In other words, it becomes moderated. Solidity, you don't need to look at it from the point of view of solidity of the samskaras. That is one of the negative ways of looking at it. The samskaras, as they actually become more and more grosser, in order to save space, the things are actually pushed together to make it solid. So many people, when they use the word solidity, they actually use it in this particular context. The samskara is becoming very solid. In fact, if you go back to the earlier books, we always used to say all the grossness, darkness, complexities, impurities, and the solidity is going up from the back in the form of smoke or vapor. This was one of the things that we used to use for samskaras. But here, in the context of the solidity that is used for earth element, what you're actually talking about is being more firmly grounded. Now, what you mean by more firmly grounded is that you actually accept all that comes your way in a very grounded way. You don't become too perturbed with some things which are not up to your liking comes your way compared to the things which you like. So in the context of solidity, what exactly we mean is that to be grounded. Only when you are grounded, you are in a better position to accept the things that come your way. So that is the context in which we use the word solidity.
Okay, brother.
Yeah, I think these English words probably have multiple sort of
Exactly.
nuances. Like, you say he's a solid person,
Exactly.
right?
Correct. See, some of the challenges that we face in spirituality is the limitations of the vocabulary. So that's a very, very big challenge. For example, we just today had that space versus ether debate. Again, it's a challenge of the vocabulary. And again, if you just look at the absolute being space and the identity also being the space, then the question comes, are they one and the same? If so, what is it different in that particular context? So some challenges in the vocabulary is always something to keep in mind. But if you can understand the spirit behind what is being talked about, I think then the vocabulary should not make so much of an issue. Okay. Vidya sister.
Namaste, brother. I was seeing the spiritual anatomy chart where Master tells that in quality in quality of a chakra there are no dualities. Only in the feelings there are dualities or opposites. I would like you to tell a little more about the differences, brother, please.
Just now we spoke about, say for example, in the quality of acceptance, you don't look at the two dualities of contentment versus discontentment. See, the feeling of contentment and discontentment is there. But once you actually develop the quality of the earth element, which is the acceptance, these feelings actually do not matter. That's why I said you actually develop moderation. The way out of duality is not shunning both the dualities. The way out of duality is develop moderation. So if you just remember what we spoke about earlier on, what is there in the final center? We had spoken about PCMB. You remember? perfect peace, perfect
Yes.
calmness, perfect
Yes.
moderation, perfect
It's
balance.
calm.
So now
Yes.
look at it. From the
Yes.
first point up to the center, you require moderation. So one of the characteristic thing that we have to develop throughout our journey from the first point across all the regions is moderation. So moderation helps you to cross over the dualities. Now, since you are actually working with moderation, you are not going to shun any feelings. You will accept every feelings that come your way. For example, you remember that famous story that Lalaji's one of the kin passes away when he is actually holding some meeting with the sadhus. And Lalaji is very tearful, and then many of the sadhus makes a comment, what kind of a yogi is if he's going to feel so sad about passing away of his progeny. And Lalaji then puts some dry leaves and then he walks on it.
Examples. Yes.
And then he says, even dead leaves make a noise if they're actually stamped upon. I am a human being. If I hear the passing away of my progeny, don't you think I should actually feel something? So it is but natural.
Yes.
Now, the thing is, it's not that Lalaji did not actually have any feeling. He did have the natural feeling that should be there in a human, but it was moderated. It was contextual and it was moderated. So, if at all you want to talk about one key that will help us to transcend all the dualities, it is moderation. Okay?
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Sangeeta?
Yes, Vaya. In the spiritual anatomy, Daji also mentions this, that each time the inspiration gushes upward, it blocks from becoming a diamond. What exactly does he mean by the inspiration? Is it any thought that comes up? Is that what he's trying to say? Because he says it's coming up.
Just repeat the last inspiration. What happens? The sentence?
Each time, each time the inspiration gushes upward, it gets blocked from becoming a diamond.
From becoming a
Yeah.
diamond.
A diamond, huh? It is in the first slide also.
Yeah, first slide. I'm trying to bring that up and trying to see it. This one, not this one. I think, yeah.
Sister, in that
Not this one.
context,
If there were three.
Yeah.
Previous slides, yeah. Here.
This one, the last one.
The last line.
where is the last one?
This one, the last
Second
paragraph.
line.
Last paragraph.
Each
Yeah.
time the inspiration gushes upwards, it gets blocked from becoming a diamond.
Where is this?
So the way this is a part of Daji's third paragraph. I think the way I looked at it, sister, was we make a lot of efforts basically also. Like, we know something is wrong, but we put many times we put effort to sort of change ourselves from inside. But it really, the samskara is so very strong. The upstream is so strong that we cannot change ourselves. And I think that is where I thought that was my understanding, where we need probably a guru or we need extra like help, like a transmission or something like that to really change ourselves. That's what I thought, from this.
So you mean to say that when our own efforts also we are putting, even that inspiration, it gets blocked?
That also gets, because because that inspiration is not strong enough to sort of loosen whatever the knot is, so that which we can take it forward. That's how I understood that. Yeah. Raghu brother, you want to add something? Or
Sister, let's understand, where does the inspiration come from?
The mind, of course.
What is inspiration? No, it doesn't come from the mind, although it is felt in the mind.
Okay.
If you just remember from Heartfulness Way, you remember whenever we touch super consciousness, we had spoken about nice. You remember that?
I had forgotten the nice.
Forgot.
But yeah,
See,
every time we touch this
meditation,
consciousness, one inspiration descends down.
Now, whenever we touch super consciousness in meditation, we get four things. One or more of these four. The first is N, newness. Second one is I, inspiration. Third one is C, clarity. Fourth one is E, energy. Okay? So now you know the source of the inspiration. The source of the inspiration is we touching the superconsciousness. Now, what is an inspiration? From a very practical perspective, inspiration is nothing but a thought aligned with a particular amount of energy. Normally, we have some thoughts, and each of the thought has some amount of energy associated with it. But when this particular thought descends from the superconsciousness, it is aligned with far more energy than what you normally experience in the consciousness. So when we say we feel inspired, we can actually feel that gush of energy within us, which will make us overcome some of the initial blockages or initial difficulties or the initial dilemmas that we have got. Now, if this inspiration does descend to our heart, if we do not catch hold of that particular energy or catch hold of that particular idea and act according to the inspiration, the direction in which the inspiration is going to take you, you are going to fetter away that particular energy. Now, how does the inspiration descend at all? Because we just now spoke, the inspiration descends from the superconsciousness. When we touch the superconsciousness, we get that inspiration. Now, for that idea, which is an inspiration to manifest, there are certain things in which that idea descends, where there should be a field for that idea to flourish. You might feel an inspiration. There are a lot of people, even outside the meditation, they can feel inspiration. But very few people actually act on the inspiration. The reason why they actually are not able to act on the inspiration is that because of all the samskaras that they already carry, which does not allow the space for that energy to actually work through. Now, how does meditation help here? Meditation, before you actually touch the superconsciousness, in meditation, what is done is that you are going to actually clean that particular area. When that cleaning occurs to a large extent, and that idea from the superconsciousness descends as an inspiration, you have a lot more space to work with. If that inspiration is not backed by this space or area where you can work with, it will encounter blockages. Now, what are the blockages? The blockages are nothing but the samskaras that we've already put on in that particular chakra where the inspiration has actually descended. So, if the blocks are not removed, the inspiration cannot be converted into something worthwhile, useful for our journey. That's what he means when he says the inspiration gets blocked from becoming a diamond. There's no space for it to be worked on and then actually for it to have a substantial impact on your journey, because the surrounding areas have not been cleaned. That is what he means. So in meditation, this is possible. But outside the meditation, when the space is not available, you are not likely to convert the inspiration into a diamond. Okay? Does that make some sense?
Complete sense. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Payush?
Yeah, brother, just related to the same paragraph, can you please elaborate on this phrase flow of consciousness? Like why is it referred as a flow?
Because there is a flow in consciousness. Don't think of consciousness as something very static. Consciousness is a very, very dynamic entity. Okay, it's kind of very fluidy. Now, for example, we all feel that the thought has a flow. Can we not feel that the thought has a flow? We say, even in a normal language, we say the thought rises up. Now, if there is no flow, there's no question of raising up. Now, how does the thought actually raise up in the mind at all? For that, you need to understand that to just give a very simple example, the consciousness is like water. The chitta, the manas, buddhi, ahankar are like three blocks of ice which are there in the consciousness, which is the chitta. Now, if you look at it as a watery kind of a example, then what exactly happens as when the meditation is done, these manas, buddhi, ahankar, all these ice gradually melt away. And they become part of the consciousness, which is like watery in nature. Now, the consciousness further gets heated up. Then it becomes like a water vapor. Again, water vapor has a flow. It moves upwards. And then it disperses in all over the area. In all the context, you can see that as and when the ice melts, there is a flow. As and when the water is heated, there is a flow. As and when the water gets converted into water vapor, there is a flow. That's exactly what happens. And apart from that, there is also the energy, which is actually the power which is flowing through the consciousness. You remember the energy or the powers which flow from the Kshobh down to the first point. That is what we use to actually use our attention and direct our mind outwards toward the external world. So when there is a flow of the power, it is flowing through the consciousness. So the consciousness is not a very, very static entity, but it's a dynamic entity. That's what you just need to remember. Like, for example, to just give another example, many times we say the consciousness is nothing but the glow coming from the soul. Now, even if you take a light coming from sun, we talk about the particles of light flowing, the photons flowing from the sun down to the earth. So there is a flow involved. Now, if you look at light as a static thing, you might not think about it. But if you look at the light as a particle thing, you see that there is a flow involved. So likewise, consciousness, even if it's considered as a glow coming from the soul, then also there is a flow in that particular context also, in the context of light also.
Okay. Thank you.
Anand?
This is, it's about the blocks, right? That affect the flow of consciousness, right? And affects the chakras. So we also read about the chakras are like energy centers, right? They are formed when the soul descended. So I'm trying to visualize, there are a lot of metaphors used as to how the samskaras block the flow, like channels, right? I'm trying to think in a simpler way. I'm trying to understand, what are samskaras made of? For example, we say X-rays, right, are stopped by lead, right? Or sun's rays can be stopped by, some material, right? So are samskaras, what are they made of? Because that's my question in the end.
Fundamentally, samskaras are also made up of material. Okay, I'll just give you one or two reasons for that. The physical body is made up of physical material, physical elements. The subtle body is made up of subtle elements. The causal body is made up of causal elements. All of them are elements only. They're all fundamental. That is the reason why all these three things are called as bodies. We don't call the supreme soul or the center as a body. But all these three, whether you look at it in the context of Brahman or the individual, they are called as three bodies. Why are they called as bodies? Because it is an amalgamation of different elements coming together. So there is always an element. Now let us look at samskaras. Samskaras are formed because of the body and the mind interacting with the things outside in the external world. We take an impression of that, we kind of put it inside. Now, what is the impression that we're actually putting it? What are the instruments that we're using it? We are using the body and the mind as the instrument to actually create the samskaras. Now, if we don't identify with the body or the mind, the creation of the samskaras stop. because we have not identified with the body or the mind. As long as we have identification with the body and the mind, it is from that level we interact with the objects of the world and we form the samskaras. This is one aspect. In other words, the samskaras are also made up of material only. It is no different. Second answer to this question is that the samskaras, what are the content of the samskaras? If you were to ask, the content of the samskaras are, it is thoughts, it is emotions, it is visuals, it is memory, it is experience, and it is pictures. These are all the content of the samskaras. So you can have just a samskara just based on some thought. You can have thought plus energy. You can have thought plus energy plus emotion. You can have thought plus energy plus emotion from plus a picture or a scene. You can have thought, energy, emotion plus a visual or like a reel, or you can have associated experience or a memory as a whole stored. I'll just give you a very simple example. Suppose we think of something bad and then we make a note of it. Now that becomes thought related samskara. Suppose we think something bad, not only we make a note of it, we add emotions to it and we feel upset about it. Now that becomes a thought plus the emotion that you have added. You take another example. Many of these war veterans, when they go to the war, they literally see people getting crushed or getting blown into pieces right in front of their eyes. The kind of visual that they see gets etched at the deepest core of their being. They are not able to get over. Now, this is called as, in psychiatry, we call it as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Very common disorder, especially for those people who undergo extreme kinds of brutality, like in a war situation or in rapes, various kinds of that kind of an extreme experience. That whole experience in toto is etched in their memory. And we cannot erase, even if we give n number of medications, you cannot erase the impact of that kind of an experience out of the mind of that particular person. It's a very difficult experience to kind of treat. These things, and the last point I want to make in the context of why I feel it is material is, we keep telling you that samskaras, when they increase, they make us predisposed to mental health issues. We had spoken about it. And as of now, if you look at how psychiatry is practiced, most of the psychiatric conditions are actually managed by giving medications. Now you might wonder, if it is something related to an experience, why is a tablet working on an experience? How is the tablet changing the nature of the experience? Until unless there is something material in this particular samskara. So the very fact that the tablets work on the samskaras and actually relieve the patient of the mental illness indicates that the samskaras are nothing but a compost of materiality. Now, look at this. I can give you medications and I can actually get the mental illness to become better. But I cannot give medication and make a person spiritual. It's not possible. Because in spirituality, you have to get rid of materiality. In mental illness, we get rid of excessive materiality that we have developed. To that extent, the tablet work. But beyond a certain level, it is not going to work because I cannot make anybody, or we cannot make anybody spiritual by giving tablets. The natural course of how people interact, to that extent, we can bring them back by giving tablets. But beyond that, we require the cleaning. Now look at it slightly differently. If we send our patient to cleaning, they get the benefit of both. The excessive materiality is also removed. The original materiality is also removed to a certain extent. That's why people, mental health patients who are sent for cleaning sessions, they actually become more studious abhyasis than normal people. Because the range of experience that they see, the difference that they see after sitting is far more greater than a normal person can perceive. It's like somebody was carrying 10 kilos, I suddenly reduce the weight to 1 kilo. They can feel that substantial difference very easily. But somebody is carrying 3 kilo. Even if I reduce the weight to 1 kilo, that substantial difference cannot be felt. That is what happens. So I've given you quite a few indications why the content of all the samskaras are material in nature. Remember anything which in the bounds of the causal element, the causal body, subtle body, and the gross body, anything within this is always bound to have material. It cannot be otherwise. Okay. So just ponder about this. You probably will get more ideas or more probably thoughts relating to this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Another thing we'll move on, I think.
Oh, have we finished the talk or we just are?
No,
Oh,
we
this
are
is
half. We are not even started.
Oh, I thought it was over already.
No,
One
we
minute.
are just not even started.
Oh, not yet started. Okay. Oh, before that only you have so
No,
many questions. Okay.
we stopped for a while. So I think I didn't want to build up all the thoughts.
Bhumi, you can go ahead, Nirmala.
Yeah, just one more question I had. So, love is not material then.
Definitely. Love is not material. The love that we talk about, the divine love coming from the center, is not material in nature. It is something apart.
Okay. Although it's a feeling.
Although it's a feeling. Exactly. So love has 3 different levels. Love at the divine love level is something beyond feeling and emotion. When it becomes a bit grosser, it becomes like a feeling. When it becomes a bit more grosser, it becomes an emotion. The way that people show love in the cinemas is an emotion. The way that we feel when we actually move to the Brahmand Mandal and beyond is the feeling of love. So that's why bhakti, which is also considered as a refined love, also has 2
Okay.
components. There is bhakti, which is in the Pindu Pradesh, which is more grosser in nature. And as you go higher, you get para bhakti, where the para bhakti, the grosser nature of the bhakti is now taken out, and the bhakti has become so subtle. It now is just like a feeling. There's no grossness associated with it. So that is called as
Okay.
para bhakti. So again, love, you can look at it from the context of the center versus a feeling versus an emotion. Normally, what we
Okay.
talk about as love is an emotion, not the feeling or the divine nature.
Thank you, brother.
Okay.
Brother, you can continue.
Okay, brother. Thank you. Yeah. So this is basically, I think so we'll start off with the first point now, or not one now. So basically the chakra one. So we'll be using knots and chakras a little bit interchangeably. So all of you understand what it really means, because if you look at towards infinity, the Babuji talks in terms of knots, and Daji in spiritual anatomy talks about chakras. Okay, there's a lot of lines coming. 1 second, I'll try to remove them. Okay, so this again, I've taken this information from Daji's spiritual anatomy work. So if you look at the first chakra, this is basically called the earth chakra, the heart chakra. The prominent element is the earth, is basically that's the focus here. The color one would probably sort of visualize here is yellow. The color is yellow. Then defining quality is acceptance. We talked about acceptance, and the main feelings here are contentment and discontentment. Basically, they are part of the 5 C's and 5 D's. In addition, you also look at forbearance, balance, selfishness, jealousy. These are some of the other characteristic feelings that you would get. And the points nearby are basically A, B, and C, D, which are part of the element the points close to point 1. So you also see similar vibrations at the Mooladhara root chakra and also at 6 and 11. And the direction here is basically clockwise. Now, the journey of the center begins from the first chakra, where the prominent element is the earth. The essence of the earth element is acceptance. I think Mother Earth accepts all without judgment. So I think we sort of discussed this in detail just now. Okay, further, accepts all without judgment. The seeker and the saint, the rich and the poor, and the wise and the ignorant all walk on the same earth. Okay, going further, she feeds us, clothes us, raises us, and ultimately accepts our mortal remains. When you master the first chakra, you develop acceptance, and at its pinnacle, your nature becomes infinitely loving and accepting. So that loving and loving also as a part, it's a part of the fire chakra, as you see, sort of keeps influencing this chakra also in some way. So in the heart, this is basically taken, this is a text from Towards Infinity. The real state of enlightenment comes when we get into full consciousness of the condition of enlightenment, and after imbibing in the effects, securing our merging in it. When we develop this stage and merge into its consciousness, we come to know all about it and thus become jnani, that is enlightened up to that extent. The blissful state brought about it tempts our heart to go ahead, and our touch with it offers inducement to enter into the next stage. There are some states that Daji explains, which we will talk about it later. And the next paragraph, our courage intimates us the happy tidings of our onward march towards the real life, which follows every layavastha state of merging. We get into it. It helps us further, and we begin to advance towards the next point. The feeling of restlessness is no doubt there, but if our will is strong and our effort sincere, the next condition, which is superior to the previous one, shall dawn without doubt. Though in fact we have to go nowhere, everything being close at hand, yet we have to arrive at the final state definitely. If we get a good guide to pull us out of the inner poison, then the nectar alone remains. By self-effort, people sometimes do proceed up to some distant limit as well, but definitely they take a long time, and the danger of being caught within the worlds persists throughout. In the same way, there are numerous sub-points at each of them. The states of merging and identicality repeat themselves. Okay. So now I throw some light on the state of consciousness which blooms after this first sub-point. When we cross this point, we breathe in the next. Everything seems to be changed. When we get merged into it, a godly state begins to reign within, and when identicality is developed, we begin to feel that a peculiar state of reflecting a tinge of divine touch prevails over all objects, animate and inanimate. There is such an indescribable outburst of emotional feelings at this point, as often drives people who lack the support of a worthy guru of caliber to a state of mad ecstasy, avadhuta, which keeps him entangled in it forever, putting a permanent full stop to his onward advancement. Now let us ask those who boastfully profess to be the enlightened ones or jnani, whether they have ever come across such a state, which in fact is but the beginning of the first chapter of the book of knowledge. If we try to attain this state by applying our force of thought, it will only be artificial and not genuine. I think this is a similar sort of a sentiment that the letter that we read today, Lalaji's letter that we read today. So some of the things that have marked some of the states are Daji in his book on spirituality has explained in detail. I think we'll go through that. Okay, there's one more paragraph here. Now we arrive at the next subnot. The consciousness of the conditions prevailing at it is in the second stage of knowledge. When by dint of our love and devotion, we secure our approach up to it, we find that the condition now becomes lighter and finer than the previous one. What is that we find at this second knot? It is a state that presents to our view the presence of godly state prevailing all around and pervading everything. It reflects a tinge of plainness and sympathy and simplicity, which shows that we have to go into it further. At every point, the process of merging and identicality repeats itself, latter being the final stage of the knowledge of jnana of the point. When we have gone through it sufficiently and have experienced everything fully, the next knot then comes to our view. Okay. So this is basically the content in Daji sort of talked about the true nature of acceptance, which is the quality of the first knot. So I think if you read Daji's book here in this chapter, talks about his interaction with youngsters in Ghana who come in from who are come on an exchange program. Some of the youngsters who came into Ghana and from not so well-to-do countries, and they sort of how they sort of took benefit of staying in Ghana, made friends, and sort of help themselves to sort of grow in the period of time that they were staying in Ghana. Was the sort of experience that that Daji explains here, and here essentially the characteristic that Daji observed in these abhyasis was the nature of acceptance, as to how they basically accepted their not so well-to-do conditions in their own respective countries, and now sort of learned what has to be learned here, and enjoyed being in the present, learned what happened, and that was that was the incident that Daji explains in this particular. Okay, and he goes further. He talks about that experience that he had. He said, these young hearts symbolized that my master said about life. Life is movement, change, and evolution. The movement of energy, acceptance of change, and the evolution of consciousness. Movement, change, and evolution create a flow. Movement, change, and evolution create a flow. It is possible to flow is it possible to flow if you are tethered? The samskaras tether your growth. As samskaras are clean, you rise above attachments and the resistances by developing acceptance. Acceptance and love are the fulcrums for navigating life with grace and compassion. Acceptance means allowing movement, change, and evolution. Instead of imposing your will on the universe, acceptance helps you channel the universe's will to allow you to grow and evolve. Acceptance is a wise counselor and saves you valuable time on the journey. It gives you strength and wisdom, and the state of acceptance is a secret of a well-understood spiritual life. Everyone faces trials and problems without exceptions. Acceptance of others is the basis of good relationships. It encourages us to move past our differences and to accept and embrace people as they are. While miseries are universal, the suffering can be reduced through acceptance. Denial only prolongs the suffering. Denial means suffering without learning life lessons. Okay, now here basically concludes. When the first chakra blossoms, acceptance permeates your being. You don't have to make mental efforts and practice acceptance. It happens naturally, like a rose whose fragrance wafts in the air. So acceptance liberates you. The journey from I am what I am to I am what I ought to be begins with accepting oneself. And this is probably the first step in our spiritual journey. So some conditions that are sort of what Daji is showing in this particular chakra are like this, or in any chakra for that matter. As I mentioned, my hope is that this book will be an atlas of consciousness for you. In that spirit, I will share some common feelings and experiences aspirants have during their journeys through each chakra. Depending on their sensitivity, some feel these conditions more intensely than others. The goal is not comparison or checking boxes for success, but rather to know so that you might experience, and to experience so that you might become. When we meditate on the heart chakra, we enliven the bracketed energy and are open to the gifts of a variety of conditions. Okay. So the first one is Raji is talking about I think even Babuji also mentioned about that, the feeling the presence of the divine. So here Taji in his book on spirituality expands on this. At the first chakra, the presence of the divine is felt within and without. This means when you close your eyes and look within, you feel the presence of something higher. Similarly, when you look at the sky or universe, you feel the pervasiveness of the divine all around. Your heart begins to catch glimpses of something immense during the journey of the chakra. These glimpses are expressed in feelings of awe. You become charged with these feelings and admire nature and its creation. Here, I think the feeling of awe, would like to stress on the feeling of awe here, when we are sort of exposed to what we see within us and outside us. The second sort of a condition is a condition of poise. The feeling of pervasiveness of the divine or a higher power kindles a feeling of acceptance. You remain poised during times of calamities and troubles and times of joy and excitement. A sense of balance is paramount in this state. This means no undue attachment to anything. You expend only as much emotional energy as needed by the task. You also refrain from judging people and situations. An equal eye on all is appreciated here. So the next is kindred feelings. During this phase, you feel like meditating more. You may also feel like taking more sittings. These are welcome signs. Others who are on the spiritual path feel like kith and kin. You feel camaraderie with them and feel like spending more time with those who share similar goals. The motherly qualities that develop in you make you a caring person. There's one more last. The next is discernment and renunciation. As your samskaras are cleaned away, the heart becomes sensitized and you begin to experience everything with a greater intensity. So when you experience contentment, acceptance, forbearance, and balance, you will also experience their opposites: discontentment, selfishness, jealousy, and denial. The key is to accept, process, and move on. How do you do that? Through discernment and renunciation. They begin with the first chakra and continue to be refined as you progress on the journey. Discernment is distinguishing what is beneficial from what is detrimental. When the heart is free of samskaras, his voice becomes clearer and you receive guidance from within about what actions to take and what to avoid. As you advance, your discernment expands to include thoughts, helping you to cultivate the positive and reject the negative. Ultimately, discernment works at the level of feelings, guiding you from a place of inner wisdom. Feelings, thinking, and actions. That's what it talks about. Renunciation is not about abandoning your family, job, or positions, but rather putting aside the undue attachments that burden you emotionally. Renunciation is a state of loving detachment in which you focus on what's important and distractions lose their power over you. By meditating with love, you can cultivate the state of flow and clarity needed for renunciation and discernment to emerge. It is essential to take the early days of practice seriously, as any deficiency in practice during this time can have repercussions at the higher level. I think here also, I think I know Daji is talking about the 10 maxims as to how we need to meditate, with love, creating the condition of love in our hearts and meditating. This was lastly is this. As your samskaras are cleaned away, the heart becomes sensitized and you become to experience everything with greater intensity so that you're, I think it's just get repeated over here. I'm sorry about that. Sorry. So this is the last slide. I think restlessness increases. Because, I know it sounds contradictory, but as you journey through the first chakra, you may feel some restlessness. This is natural. As I described earlier, restlessness is an expression of soul's eagerness to keep going further. A discerning mind can feel the difference between the restlessness for the goal and the restlessness that arises from disturbance. Even if restlessness arises from mundane matters, you can now deflect it to propel your journey. Your poise helps you to navigate the period of restlessness and helps you to further progress. So I added some 2 slides from which I got recently, where Babuji is talking about impatience or constant restlessness to reach the goal is the shortest possible time, is thus by far the most important factor which contributes to our speedy success. We must not rest even for a while till we have gained the real object, the eternal peace and calmness. Intense longing naturally creates restlessness for it, and we have no peace till we achieve it. Therefore, it is very essential thing and must be cultivated by whatever means possible. Babuji, Ramchandra, Shahjahanpur, India. I think rest lot till the goal is achieved is one thing, what's important, because there could be, as we discussed last time around, each chakra would probably give us some very, very extremely pleasant sort of feelings, and which we should not get hooked onto it. And the one below is what Chariji basically saying. When you understand the profundity of life, that the soul is perpetual, life is not a perpetual thing, not the bodily life, then you will feel that you don't have much time to do what is good. Whatever good I must do it now. Chariji Sahajman. So this is my last slide, and okay, I think the final point which I thought of mentioning here is the last paragraph here. What Daji is asking us, reflect on the experiences, qualities, and feelings at the first chakra. So much to experience, and if the beginning of the adventure is so action-packed, imagine what awaits you as you reach higher levels of consciousness. Here, Daji is saying this: don't remain here as you experience all these conditions. There's a lot more ahead, which we sort of have to experience. So. So this was my last slide, and there's a slide on reflection. Maybe you can spend this Daji in his book sort of has given a section on reflection, which which essentially is to sort of reflect. There are some questions that is asked where you probably can spend a couple of minutes, and you can probably note it down in your own books, in your own diary. Think of a time when you resisted a difficult situation in your life. The question that you would ask yourself: what did that feel like? What did you learn from it? Maybe you all want to write. You spend a couple of minutes, and we can come back.
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hello,
yeah.
Raghu brother. Huh.
I thought everyone has gone into kind of a statue mode. Everyone is so quiet.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Nobody is hardly any
No,
movement.
we had these reflection questions. I think,
That's okay.
thought I'll give them a couple of minutes.
No, I
So
thought
what we can do is
whether,
you can expand on it.
no, I thought the
You
whether
can
the internet has hanged it. So
Okay. Okay, what you can do is you can sort of expand on what has started now, so that which will basically give you a good indication as to you know, what we are trying to learn in this particular first chakra. So I think this was my last slide, and can go for any. We had some midway, we had some question answers, and there are more questions. I think we can take it from here. Yeah, we had first question from Madhuri. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, brothers. So, actually, in most of the chakras that Bapuji has described, most of the qualities are not written actually, like desire, contentment, so many like that. So, these qualities are also like C and D points discovered by Daji, like that they are also discovered by Daji, or it's somewhere Bapuji has written about the desire, contentment, peace, restlessness, those are things. Just
Interesting question. I think what Daji has done is probably distilled from whatever Babuji has written and in many other books also, and he has also added to his own innovation. I think this, you see, points C and D are other points that but Babu was not there in our literature. Was not there in our literature. Maybe Babuji may have mentioned it in a different way, but as you see in our books now, we have got the point C and D coming in. So there's been a lot of innovation. I think that's the advantage of being with a guru, having a living guru who try to build from the experience of the previous gurus, right? I think that's the thing that I think there we see a lot of new things that are coming in. When we started reading this book on Towards Infinity, what we thought was you'll also read spiritual endeavor along with this, because it looks like a sort of an appendage to what has been written by Babuji in Towards Infinity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sister. Yeah, Kishore.
Yeah, good evening, brother. So, brother, in your previous slide, there was some line mentioning like in the heart region, it is very important to, like again emphasizing on the importance of abhyas. And there was also one line adding to that, like repercussions are felt in the higher regions of that. So, does it mean like we will have the imbalance between the theoretical knowledge versus the experience or the practical knowledge, or what exactly is meant by the repercussions in the higher region is here?
One second, brother. I'll try to bring that slide up. Okay. Let me know which slide are you talking about.
I think just 2-3 slides in the end towards after question answer session only, where we were discussing point first. So little bit behind. Now it is too small.
One second. I think I'll swap it and probably be big. Which one? Okay, what I'll do is I'll go out of, be too small, right? So I was wondering. Is it okay? You're able to see?
Yeah, I'm able to see.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell.
Yeah, so the question was like, it was mentioned in the pinned Pradesh, like, it was related to Abhyas only. So if you want, you can even search in the sites. So it was saying it will have repercussion in the higher region if it is not done properly. I think should be somewhere here only, but not able to locate.
Brother, it's in the last line of the slide. Of this slide only. You can see
Slide
it.
only. Okay. Okay. Discernment
Right-hand
in
side.
distinguishing. Yeah. What is
Yes,
this
yes,
one?
yes. Just before the pictures, where the two pictures are there, just 2 lines before.
Okay. Renunciation is not about abandon. Okay. We want. I'll read this out again for the benefit of all. Renunciation is not about abandoning your job, family, or positions, but rather putting aside the undue attachments that burden you emotionally. Renunciation is a state of loving detachment in which you focus on what's important and the distraction lose their power over you. By meditating with love, you can cultivate the state of flow and clarity needed for renunciation and discernment to emerge. Is essential to it's essential to sort of take up the early days of practice seriously, as any deficiency in practice during this thing can have repercussions at higher levels. I think the way I understood is, that it is like having the fundamentals proper, like, doing your sadhana properly, doing, some, like your morning meditation, you know, cleaning and all the prayer, all the 10 maxims, right? Which are the essential practices. Those, I think, needs to be sort of done in a very serious manner without cutting corners. I think that's what I understood out of it. Because sometimes, you see, we are with the master. Master sometimes gives us progress, right? With his own efforts. But then as we go to higher levels without our fundamentals not being appropriate, right? There could be a lot of issues that can come up. That's basically what I understand. Like he says, repercussions at higher level where higher level of discipline is needed. So I think that discipline, I think, should be sort of inculcated right from the beginning. That's what I understand. Right?
Shall we add one or two things?
Raghu brother, you want to add something as well?
Yeah. So just two
Sure,
things.
go ahead. Huh.
Just two things. One is that as we progress higher, the conditions actually become more subtle. In fact, one of the things that Lalaji says is that please keep the Abhyasi in the heart region for as long as possible, where they can actually experience the whole range of experiences that they have to pass through. This is one thing that Lalaji advises in the 44 Whispers quite forcefully, repeatedly. He says, to the extent the Abhyasi experiences different varieties of experience that they have to undergo in the Pinda Pradesh, in the heart region, especially in the first point, to that extent, they will be well versed with these conditions in the higher points, because it's only the subtler conditions of the same experiences that manifest in the higher points. So, if the Abhyasi is not given that range of experience in the Pinda Pradesh, then their ability to catch hold of the subtle experience in the higher points actually is curtailed. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing is that if you actually look at the experiences that you have to pass through in terms of the fineness or the refinement that needs to occur, unless you actually go through. I'll just give you another example. Say, for example, point B cleaning. Daji writes in Heartfulness Way that it is different when we say that a person is qualified for liberation versus having the condition of liberation. You remember that we had spoken about it in one of the classes. There are many people in our system who are qualified for liberation, but not necessarily having liberation. So that's like saying, I have the qualification to write a particular exam, but I have not actually written the exam and passed the exam. Now, what exactly is the reason why people, Daj is differentiating between people who have the qualification for for liberation versus having liberation? If a person is not actually very versed with the practice of, say, point B cleaning, anything which is related to excessive desires in any realm will actually pull them back again into the Pinda Pradesh. Which is why we say that an aspect of the shadow of the Maya is present in the 6th point. Only when we are able to cross that aspect of the shadow of the Maya in the 6th point into the 7th point that we are able to get liberation for guarantee. However, there are a lot of people who are qualified for liberation, but since they have not actually got rid of the desires to the extent that is necessary, they come back to this earth. Okay, so that's another reason, another example I can give where this particular point in terms of the emphasis on the importance of the practice in the early stages to help them go through different experiences. Secondly, holding them there in the Pinda Pradesh, especially in the first point for a long time. In fact, the way that it is shown as far as 5 points in the Pinda Pradesh is slightly different from what Lalaji describes in the 44 Whispers. Here it's shown as 1 point here, 1 point. So the 4 or 5 points are shown here as almost equal. But that's not how it is. What Lalaji says is that the first point is the one which is predominantly occupying the entire chest. The first point is almost like from here, it occupies the entire chest. The second, third, and fourth point comparatively are smaller points. So that again is the reason why Lalaji emphasizes that it is quite possible and it is quite also reasonable to hold the Abhyasi in the first point for as long as possible. Okay. Now, in this particular context, the early grooming that we give in terms of how they are made to learn about meditation, the importance of the cleaning, the importance of the point B cleaning, various other practices, that becomes critical. Because it's something like this. You start a vehicle and you need to go on the road straight. But if you are kind of just turned by few degrees initially at the start and you continue to go straight after having turned few degrees at the start, you are likely to end up into an obstacle.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I think Ravi,
No,
I think Raghu got disconnected. I think.
some issue with the network. So we are back now.
Okay.
So a slight change in the
Brother,
angle
we couldn't hear you.
start of the vehicle.
Raghu brother, I think
We lost what you were saying earlier also.
Raghu brother, there was some problem with the network. I think if you're able to sort of recap,
So see, I
couple of
just mentioned
minutes.
3 points. First point is that Lalaji says keep the Abhyasi in the Pinda Pradesh as much as possible so that they can have a variety of experiences. Why is this experience of a variety necessary? Because when they go to the higher regions, they actually get a refined state of the same experience. So if they can experience, if they can recognize and be sensitive to the experience in the Pinda Pradesh, their ability to be sensitive to the experience in the higher regions is well established. So that's one reason. Second reason is Lalaji says the first point, although we have marked in the figure as all the 5 points as being equal, occupying one part of the chest. But in actuality, what Lalaji says is that the first point is an overarching presence in the chest region. The second, third, and the fourth point are actually very small points compared to the first point, which is an overarching presence in the Pinda Pradesh. That's the second thing. Third thing is that Daji differentiates between two things. One, qualifying for liberation and actually having the condition of liberation. Qualifying for liberation, but if you do not actually let go of the desires, which is based on, say, point B cleaning and doing the regular sadhana in the early phases, what is likely to happen is that we might actually go to the higher points, but the desires that we have got in our heart might pull us down. So that's the reason why Daji is emphasizing about the importance of the initial practice where we get strongly grounded. To just give a very simple example, if at the start of the vehicle I have to go on a street, I have to keep my vehicle straight, my front tire straight to go in the direction of the street. If my front tire is turned by few degrees to the left or right, it's quite likely that we are likely to meet an obstacle rather than we are going to go to the destination in a safe way. So that even slight degree of change can actually lead you far away from where you are supposed to go. So these are the 4 things that we can talk about in the context of this particular question. Why the Ardhi Sadhana is important. And that's why talking about the need for awareness, self-reflection, alertness in meditation, correctly doing the meditation, all these things are very critical in the initial phases of the development of the Abhyasi. Okay. Okay, pa. Anything
Thank
else?
you, Brother Kishore. Good question.
Thank you for clarifying both.
I think people are reflecting a lot. I think they had a lot of things to take in, I think. Vasuki.
Unmute
Namaste,
yourself,
brother.
brother.
Go ahead.
Am I audible, brother?
Yeah.
You are.
Yes.
You are.
Yes. I have 2 questions. One is about brother talked about Avadhuta Sthiti in this knot, where Master also mentions, can we call this as a gross Avadhuta Sthiti because same thing gets reflected at 7 point also, and scriptures talk about much about this point also. Need more elaboration about this. And question number 2 is, there is something called as tunnel light experience, where do we experience that this at point 1? More clarity is required on that, brother. Thank you.
As far as the second point is concerned, the tunnel-like experience, it's very common. Many Abhyasis report that. Many Abhyasis, when they start their journey, within the first few weeks to few months, they feel like they're actually going inside a tunnel. Some of them report it as dark tunnel, some of them report it as there was a dark tunnel and then gradually it became a bit more glowing. So varieties, but the tunnel experience is a very, very common experience when the Abhyasi starts responding to the spiritual work. Okay, and that's quite likely to occur at the first point. As far as the earlier question about Avadhuta state is concerned, scriptures described Avadhuta state as a very highly evolved state. But you need to remember there are 2 levels of Avadhuta state. It's not described as 2 levels, but I'm just kind of putting it as 2 levels for the sake of our clarity and understanding. There is one state of Avadhuta where a particular person, after having tasted an experience at a particular point, likes the condition so much that they don't want to let go of it. And they're happy to stay there. Now that is also called as an Avadhuta state. But remember, in this particular stage, there is no mental derangement. They are liking the experience of a particular point. They are in touch with divinity to some extent, but there is no mental derangement. Now there is a second level of Avadhuta state where you don't need to call it as a gross or a subtle thing. There is a second kind of an Avadhuta state where not only they like the experience of a particular state, they also are in touch with the divine realm. However, their mental functioning is totally deranged. In the sense that if you ask them a legible question, they are not able to answer you legibly in a meaningful way. They just keep uttering few words. And then, however, there is a touch of divinity in what they utter. Now, whether it's intentional, accidental, that's a different question altogether. But there is a touch of divinity, and it's quite likely that some of the things that they might utter might actually come to fructification. So, to that extent, we say that they are actually in touch with divinity. However, they are actually mentally deranged. If you kind of look at it from a mental health functioning, they are not able to do the normal functioning like any other person. They are not able to legibly answer any question. They keep uttering few words or they keep repeating few phrases repeatedly. This is how they actually function. Along with that, they also have this attachment to the condition at a particular point, and they have a tinge of divinity kind of flowing through them. So this is the second level. So broadly, you can have an earlier stage where the mental functioning is kind of reasonably retained, and you have a next stage where the mental functioning is kind of lost or deranged. And when people talk about Avadhuta state, what people talk about is the second one, where the mental health functioning is deranged. So these are the two kind of stages that you can actually talk about from the Avadhuta perspective.
Raghu brother is Babuji mentions mad ecstasy.
That's
So
what.
maybe he's talking about the second stage.
Exactly.
Second phase.
So in the context of many people talking about Avadhuta, they talk in the context of mental functioning getting deranged.
Thank you, brother.
Okay.
Raji.
Rachi Joshi.
Namaste, brother. Brother, I have a question related to points. See, when we are like all our books, the points are shown like from at the front side of the body. When we are taking sittings, transmission, um, so sometimes it is like, we feel, say, uh, not just at the front, but at the back side also, uh, certain things. So, like, if it is a feeling of expansion, like, it's in the circular shape. Most of the time, it's like spherical, like, or something like, basically in a circular or spherical, and very less, maybe if I can remember, like it is something like going up. So it's like vertical. So how, because it is at the back side also and front side also. So it's like, why I'm asking this is because it's still, we feel it, there is this physical thing, right? So it is still in that inside that physical body only, right? Or it goes out also. Sometimes we feel uh, at the body also some, uh, something like goosebumps, more or less like that. So how does it work?
Almost sleep.
That was the question.
So why do we feel? Is that the question? Or is it correct that we feel? Is that the question?
Yeah, brother, I'm just trying to get more understanding on that. Yeah, because yeah.
So what is the question then?
So it
Commonly
is
felt, is that the question? Or is it that why do we feel like that? Is that the question?
basically both.
Okay. What you said is a very common thing. And what you said is correct. That quite a lot of Abhyasis do report that they feel that certain things are actually going out not only from the sides but also from the front and the back, even when they take the sittings. Okay, so that's a correct experience, like the tunnel experience that brother talked about. It's again very commonly reported experience. Now, in fact, in sometime in the past, when the preceptors were taught about the work on the chest, when they do the work on the in the individual sitting, one of the things that was actually talked about was that the samskaras are actually getting cleaned from all the three sides. When I say three sides, that includes the side, the front, and the back. So there is an element of some part of the front also getting involved in that cleaning process, although mainly the cleaning process occurs through the sides. But it's quite commonly felt that the cleaning also occurs to a certain extent from the front and the back. Now, the cleaning is not literally occurring in the physical body. So don't relate it to the physical body. The cleaning is occurring at a subtler level, at at the level where the samskaras are deposited in the consciousness. So to that extent, you should not worry too much about the direction from where the cleaning is occurring, as long as you are able to feel the cleaning and the lightness that comes secondary to that cleaning. If you are able to feel that, I think that should be fine. You don't need to worry about it because it's not exactly in the physical realm, although we seem to work on the physical body, but actually the work is occurring way more deeper at a subtler level. And at that level, you do feel that the work occurs at multiple directions, the front, the side, and the back. And that's a correct experience as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure, brother. Thank you.
But one question I had in this context, if the samskaras are getting cleaned from the front and the back, why should you worry about it? You should be happy, no? Why do you want to send the samskaras only from the side?
Yeah.
That's my question. Wherever it goes, let it go. Why should we worry too much about it?
Yeah, brother. Yeah, that's right. We just needed more understanding on.
Got the point, but this is my question. See, the point is we need to get rid of the samskaras. Somebody is working on us and then using some kind of process, they're actually trying to help us get rid of the samskaras. And we are sitting with the right attitude. Let it go from wherever. Why should we worry about it? But then since it occurs at a subtler level, way more than the physical body, you do feel it from multiple directions. Although literally when we are taught, when we are spoken to, we say that mainly the samskaras goes from the side. But many abhyasis do report going from the front and the back also. Okay? Girish?
Good evening, brother. This is while doing the individual cleaning ourselves. If you lean onto the chair, will it affect the cleaning process? I feel like that. That's why just I'm asking you.
If you feel like that, don't lean on the chair.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, that I'm doing. But whether it affects, is it correct or not? Just I want to know.
Literally, I don't think it should affect. But generally, it is. In spirituality, we always say that whenever you take a sitting or you do the cleaning, keep your back straight. Obviously, when you keep
Yeah.
the back straight, automatically it will be away from the backrest of the chair. Okay,
Yeah.
that happens automatically. But in just a theoretical perspective, answer to your question is no, it should not affect.
Okay.
Okay.
Normally, I sit straight and do it actually. Maybe after 15 minutes, I may lean half a minute like that. So at that time, I feel and I get adjusted once again to sit straight.
If you are getting adjusted, no issues. That's a good thing that
Yeah, but okay.
so you don't
I
need to
will.
worry about it. Half a minute of that cleaning, don't think that it's going to
Yeah,
get effective. Don't worry about it.
yeah, right. Thank you.
Okay, Anand.
It is actually about the chakra 1 and the defining quality and the feelings that we were talking about. I'm trying to take some practical examples. I think when spiritual anatomy, Daji talks about some examples. So first question is about acceptance in relationships. And the second part is accepting a situation. So accepting relationships, sometimes it leads to compromise, right? And discontentment in the longer run, right? Okay. I'm the one always accepting, right? That is the first question. Maybe if we can answer this and then I'll come to the second part, accepting a situation. Yeah.
So I think probably you need to elaborate a bit more in terms of I'm the one who is accepting. So just elaborate a bit more on that.
I think he's talking about a relationship.
In a relationship,
In a relationship, accepting a situation is I'm not well. I accept the situation. That's all.
Okay, accepting. Okay, this is just accepting a situation. My question was different. There it is. I used to have the habit of when something happens, I'll accept it and then tell myself it is for the good. Now I'm thinking, it's probably neither good nor bad. I mean, it is, whatever it is, right? So there was a second part, a slightly different question. What is right or wrong there? The first part is definitely about relationships, where I've seen people struggle with this. Right. Yeah.
See, the only relationship human beings can actually form.
So the first question, is that clear? Or, I mean, how is that acceptance different from just accepting the other person, and then you feel like, you're the one compromising, and then eventually leading to discontentment?
To ask you something.
I think we are lost, Raghu, I think.
In the
You lost.
Are you able to hear?
I can hear you now. Is the
can hear
question, is the question clear? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
The question is clear. See, first and primary thing that we need to keep in mind is in the context of spirituality is that the only true friend or true relationship is either with the master or God. That's the primary thing that you have to take into consideration. In that context, every other relationship that we have at a human level becomes secondary. Now, whenever we feel that we are actually making some degree of compromise, it is always at the level of the ego. The soul does not make any compromise as far as its evolution is concerned. But the mind, based on its likings and dislikings and the kind of value system it develops, the belief systems and the value system it develops, would give rise to a feeling of a compromise being done. In a way, if you actually take these two premises into account, over a period of time, if you look at second point, Vairagya, do you mean to say that the Vairagya is going to develop only in some relationships and not in other relationships? That's not how it's going to be. Vairagya will be across the board, across all situations, across all relationships. If it's going to be Vairagya against only some people or some relationships and some objects, that is not true Vairagya. That's going to be like temporary Vairagya that we talk about, Smashana Vairagya. When people come back from the graveyard, or when people come back when they are actually have lost their loved ones, or when they actually lose a relationship. So there is a loss of that particular loved relationship and they perceive that loss, and then they actually develop vairagya, which is a temporary thing. So if you look at it from this spiritual context of the only true relationship that a human soul can actually make with the Supreme Soul, that is the primary thing. And in the context of Vairagya, it deals with all relationships. And anytime we feel that we are actually making more compromise than others in terms of the relationship, it is a response of the ego. In a way, if the response of the ego is actually kind of, why we actually feel this more in the Pinda Pradesh. In the Pinda Pradesh, this response of the ego is very strong. So any loss that is perceived is magnified to a large extent. But as we go higher, this loss which is perceived is actually taken on board and you actually move beyond that particular loss. Not out of a sense of, as you say earlier on, you said, oh, this is good for me. Now that duality about the good and bad also goes as you go higher. So you just accept it the way it comes. It is what it's supposed to be. That's all you will say. Neither you will say it is good, nor you will say that's bad. So if at all at any point of time in the relationship we feel that we are compromising too much, it is a response of our ego, which itself is based on our upbringings, the societal values and the belief systems that we have kind of got embedded with as we grow in the society. Okay. Now, remember, as you progress from the first point to the higher points, what are you doing in terms of relationship? You are re-establishing the primary relationship with God. Now that becomes the primary thing. Now, on the backbone of that relationship, any other changes that you see in the relationships will become far more what you say, acceptable, far more tolerable. That is what is going to happen as far as relationship is concerned. Now, if after attaining this relationship, if you still feel that I'm compromising too much, it just indicates that your alignment with the relationship with God or the master has not become strong enough to be able to withstand these ego-led reactions. That's all that it means. Okay. So we'll just park it there. You can just kind of ponder about
Thank you.
3-4 points.
Thank you, brother.
So
And in fact,
this also mean, right? Sorry.
but
So also mean like, because the primary relation is with the God or the master, I does not care or it does not bother to me like for my normal human relations. Like this does not bother me much in a sense.
you will care for each and every relationship that is there, but you will care it in such a way that you don't actually take it into an excess, getting emotionally attached. So there is a very famous saying in Sanskrit. What is moksha? And the saying is, Mohan kshayate moksham. That is the saying. Mohan kshayate moksham. That is the saying about moksha. Now, it doesn't mean to say that you should not have normal feelings to different relationships that we have as human beings. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't become stone-like without any feelings. Are, we are human. I just gave you the earlier example of Lalaji walking on the dead leaves. We are human. We will still have feelings. But what we actually cultivate as we re-establish our relationship with the divine is we become moderate in the way that we deal with any relationship. There will be no excess in any relationship. And that makes it easier for us to handle any upheavals that might happen in any relationship whatsoever. Now, once it happens with human relationships, it becomes very easy to extrapolate that to any ideas or any objects outside. All the three are the same. What happens in one context gradually, eventually will percolate down to the other two contexts. And the most difficult of the three is the relationship. If you can learn to handle the relationship pretty well by whatever principles that we just now spoke about, handling the situations or handling the objects or the ideas becomes far more easier for us. Okay, it becomes very natural then.
Yeah, so we get less disturbed by them, like like this is what I.
Correct. You will feel some disturbance, so you will be upset, but you will be upset for a shorter period of time with less intensity. But that initial small reaction at the level of the feeling will be there. There is no emotional tagging on it. It is the emotional tagging that gets you bound to the samskara. You remember two things that actually creates the samskara, the ego and the emotion. So the moment the emotion is taken out of the equation, there is a feeling, and since the emotion is not there, the ego is also not there, the natural feeling at the level of the heart is felt, but that is not going to create any samskaras. That is what's going to happen.
Anything for our very close one at the spouses level, like we still get that, sometimes the fuse goes off kind of thing.
That is the most natural thing. So you should be very happy with that. The point is this. Lalaji says, it is a blessing to have a spouse who has sharp temperament. So if you have one, be happy that Lalaji has blessed you with one, which is going to help you evolve faster. Okay. In fact, every time we face the sharpness of somebody else, they're actually cutting through some of our samskaras, provided we tolerate it. It's a very, very important lesson. When we face sharp criticism, sharp comments, which is kind of very incisive, and it seems to kind of go deep into our heart, when we are able to tolerate that kind of a sharp related reactions, that is very incisive in terms of removing the samskaras. It's just kind of like a surgeon's knife cutting through unwanted tissue. The sharp comments and criticisms actually cuts through unwanted samskaras that we carry. So if we have somebody in our life who is kind of there in an inevitable role, let us learn to handle it the right way so that let us get the benefit of it rather than worry about it. But you don't need to go and tell them, go on making more and more sharp comments. If they do it, because it's their nature to do it, let us handle it the right way. Okay. In fact, in this context, Lalaji writes in 44 Whispers that Babuji's wife was far more influential in making Babuji what he became later on than Lalaji himself. And he says, for that reason, I am granting liberation to your wife, Babuji's wife. Because unknowingly, she has helped me a lot with whatever way she was handling you. And I'm actually very happy about that. Okay, who knows? Some of us here also might get the same comment when we go and reach Lalaji. Okay. Okay, pa. 10:15, almost 10:39. Okay. See, the reason why I requested Brother Venkatadri to go slow is that there are a lot of things to actually ponder, reflect, and grasp. That's why we did not want to rush through these points. Venkatadri brother thought that we can cover 4 points in each session. That will be too much. So even covering 2 points has taken so much of time. And I'm pretty much sure that all the subsequent points which are going to come will actually bring out more questions. So take your time. We have the next session on Thursday. So take your time, reflect on what you have studied, come prepared by reading the 3rd and the 4th point in spiritual anatomy and the towards infinity. So that if you come prepared, you probably will be able to ask even more deeper questions. Okay, that's what we would request you to do.
A small correction, brother, is 2 and 3. So you finished just one.
Yes,
we
second
just
point
covered
is
one
not
point.
over.
Okay.
One
We
point,
just only one.
one chakra. Yes.
No problem. But we covered the initial part, which had a lot of content about the elements and other things.
Yeah.
So obviously, so that took some time. No problem. So please read the 2nd and the 3rd point, and then we will have very interesting takeaways after the discussion. Okay.
Okay, brother.
Thank you very much to all of you for having spent so much of time. And good night to
Thank
each
you,
one.
brother.
Okay.
Thank you,
Namaste.
brother.
So, brother.
Karthik, we are about to close. You are raising your hand.
Yes. Very good evening, brothers, and I'm so sorry. But the thing is, brother, one small help can you do? What's happening is chakras, regions, points, and circles, they're getting a little bit confused. So if we can have, I am working on a diagram, but I'll send it to you. So if we can have a proper this thing at the end of the session, that the 7 splendor rings in the this thing that corresponds to Prapanna, Prabhu, Prapanna, and so and they represent say these knots or these granthis, and these are the points associated with them, because we basically bypass 6 and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like something like that is my this thing.
No problem. We'll shed more light on that. This has been a perennial question since the 1940s. So you are also coming to stream to catch hold of the same question. So welcome aboard. Okay.
Thank you.
Namaste then. Good night then.
And good night. Namaste. Thank you so much.
Thank you.